Hey guys, Andy here from Mediocre Hobbies coming at you with another World Eaters tutorial. I'm trying to knock them out quick and fast for you guys so that when you get your hands on the new range, you'll be able to get stuck in right away. On today's video, I will be tackling the Jakhals, which are the kind of chaff unit for the World Eaters. These are basic human auxiliaries, which of course have been pumped with all sorts of crazy drugs, blood transfusions, given some chain weapons, and go out in droves at the head of the World Eaters army to sow chaos and havoc. In these miniatures, you'll probably have squads of up to 20 of them on the battlefield, which means that if you want to put a lot of effort and time into them, it's going to show. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of effort. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you guys how to get to a really nice tabletop standard, only using a couple of colors and a little bit of time, allowing you to get your Jakhals done out of the way so you can focus on, in my opinion, some of the more important models in the army, such as Khorne, Berserkers, Angron, and the like. Before I get into the video, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of my active patrons. Without you guys, I would not be able to keep the lights on and the cameras rolling. So thank you guys so much for sticking with me on the Patreon. If you're on the fence and thinking about joining it, some of the benefits to joining my Patreon are access to a private Discord server where you can talk to me and over 140 other active patrons to get your hobby mojo going and get involved in the community. And 2, you get an extra video every single week, which means you get 52 extra videos a year. There has never been a better time to get involved. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, and the Jakhals are here. An awesome new addition to the World Eaters army list. And I cannot wait to get a full squad of 20 of these guys done and on the tabletop. So I started by spraying the model black, zenithal grey Seer, to get a nice solid coat ready for contrast. Started off the contrast with dark oath flesh, and I applied that to all of the skin on the miniature. Usually I would start with the armor color, usually the easiest thing to do, but as this model doesn't have a lot of armor on, and it's mostly skin on show, I decided to start with that. But having said that, we're now going to go onto his armor. We're going to go for exactly the same recipe as I did with my Khorne Berserkers to make them blend in. So it's flesh tears red across all the armor. Now each Jakhal is individual, there's no uniformity to them. So you need to take your time, pay attention to the miniatures, and try and find all those haggard bits of armor that are on them. So this guy pretty much only has knee pads, shin pads, and a bit of armor on his feet. And that's pretty much it. I honestly thought that he was like the casings of his chain swords were going to be red or black or something like that, but they're all metal for some strange reason. So I just stuck with the box art to make it easy and to get the miniature done quite fast. After that, I moved over to Black Templar and blacked in all the other parts of the miniature that were supposed to be black. So he's wearing black boots, black pants, and then there's things like belts and straps and holsters and all those kind of bits that need to get a coat of black. Also the straps holding on his spiked helmet, which is something you need to take care with. Otherwise you get black paint all over the skin cone, and that's not what you want. So with all of the black applied to the miniature, it's time to work on the bone. So for that we're going to go with the Skeleton Horde. World Eaters are always going to have skulls and bones hanging off in places, so knowing this recipe is pretty helpful. If you notice, he has wraps that wrap around his legs as well, and I decided to take this opportunity while I had some sort of tan color contrast to just go over those wraps as well with that. Perfect excuse. These guys are, after all, just the chaff and the cultists, not the main focus of the army, so you can take little shortcuts like that if you so choose. Lead Belcher was then used to base coat in all of the metallics. Once again, normally on a Jakhal's miniature, all the metallics would be silver. There wouldn't be anything as luxurious as the gold or brass that you see on World Eaters on them anywhere. But this is the Jakhal Alpha, the sergeant, if you will, of the squad. So he has a little bit of iconography like his big belt buckle and the little charms hanging off of the pommels of his chainsword. So those are the parts we're not going to cover in with silver because we're going to come back and hit them with the gold. The gold we're going to be using is of course Retributor Armour, because that's the same gold we used while we did our World Eaters tutorial. So it'll help it all match in together. If you so choose to add more gold to more Jakhals, this will be the recipe that you use. Maybe all the swords have little tassely bits on them, little charms, but up to you to go and find out. I will try and keep them as muted as possible. Okay, with all of the base coats applied to the model, it's time to shade it. So I'm going to go for Berserker Bloodshade, just like I did with the rest of the Khorne Berserker range, just to keep all those tones the same, help them all match in together, and look really good next to each other on the battlefield. So a nice coat of Berserker Bloodshade across the entire piece. Metallics, skin, black, red, doesn't matter, everything. While that was drying, I took the time to base the miniature. And now it's time to move on to the layering job. And just like the base coats, I'm going to start with the flesh because it's the largest area. So I'm going to start with Cadian Fleshtone and layer up the entire miniature, all the skin. So he is quite a jacked individual, quite muscular, so it is quite easy to place all of these highlights. Now we do kind of have the risk of them, like the floating muscle syndrome, the islands, of all the muscle groups not really touching off each other, which can look a little peculiar. And we also have the option of it being quite bright, a skin tone, this Cadian Fleshtone. So what I decided to do is, after I applied all of this layering to the skin, I watered down a little bit of Retributor Fleshshade, and I put it over the skin again just to tan it down a little bit. Like, I'm trying to get that like gladiator sense to these miniatures, you know, running across the gladiatorial for the Colosseum floor in the desert, the beating sun. I guess these guys are going to be a little bit more tanned than, you know, the pasty white skin I have them in now. So adding that really thin down coat of Retributor Fleshshade, it's not going to take anything away from the skin, but I think it's going to help it to sit nicer in with all those red and black tones. Definitely give us more of that kind of barbarian feel. So here's that shade dry, and that's where I'm going to leave the skin. Like I said, these guys are just chaff. They're cultists, squads of 20 of them. So I don't need to put in too much work to get them all painted. I don't want to be there for weeks trying to get this squad done and have it blown off the board in the first turn. I will save all my work for my Khorne Berserkers themselves. Corvus Black was then used to highlight all of the bits that were done in black as base coats. The pants and all the belts, boots, all those bits and pieces. It's time to move on to that red, and we did the same thing we did for the Khorne Berserker. So Khorne Red is the first layer. Like I said, there is not a lot of armor on this model, just knee pads and shin guards really. So we're going to go on with that, and after that we're going to move over to Mephiston Red and do a second layer of highlights. This time a little bit lighter than the first, just to really make those bits pop. Oh, I forgot, he actually has a mouth guard as well, sorry. He's got a big grinning face mask that covers his lower jaw and mouth. Puts it into like a snarling hound motif, which suits World Eaters down to the ground. I suppose it should be more of a jackal motif, shouldn't it? Like I said, Mephiston Red was used. As you can see, I'm being a little bit more careful and a little bit more selective about this highlight. I'm going to try and leave that dark crimson in all the recesses and crevices and just use this for the highest points. After that, we're going to go back to Lead Belcher and we're going to highlight all of the metallics. So that's the gold and the silver parts. For the gold, it's going to be my typical kind of touch highlights. Very quick and easy way to highlight gold. And then it's a normal layer with all the other silver parts of the miniature. So his chain swords, all those chains and trophy racks behind him, his face, mohawk of spikes. Very aggressive models. Basically every angle that exists on the model can hurt you. After that, we're going to use a bit of Ushabti Bone and highlight the skulls that are hanging off the model. There's quite a few on him because he is the sergeant, or Jakhal Alpha, or whatever he's called. You could, if you so choose at this point, highlight the wraps on the back of his legs that I did with the same color. But I just left them shaded and dark. I think it suits it down to the ground. And this is my completed Jakhal Alpha. I'm super pleased with her and I cannot wait to get the rest of the 9 guys painted up. Okay guys, we have our first Jakhal painted up and ready for the battlefield. I have another 9 more to get through from my first box set, and then I plan to add an entire other box set to it to make it a nice big juicy squad of 20. So using this video, I should be able to get them painted very fast. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it useful. If you did, make sure you give it a like. drop a comment below if you have any questions, and I will get back to each and every one of you guys. If for some crazy reason you're not already subscribed, take 2 seconds out of your day and hit that button. It really does make the world of difference to me. And thank you guys for sticking with me until the end of the video. I'll see you guys in the next one.